Doug Hansen. Welcome to Vertical Rope Rescue Skills. In this video today we're going to be covering a number of techniques and principles. This is not an advanced video, nor is it a basic video. It is our hope that the advanced personnel will pick up some new insights and ideas to use, and that the basic personnel will pick up some ideas on the overall rope rescue situation. During this presentation we'll be addressing anchoring and multi-anchor management, direction changes, resultant forces, resultant angles of pull, litter rigging, litter attendant rigging, belaying the rescue load, lowering systems, pulley lifting systems, and more. Principle-based rescue is the only way to accomplish the many varied and changing rope rescue situations. So as we start off, we're going to want to appoint a leader. This is something that happens a lot of times on rescues. You'll get in there and you get 3 or 4 people trying to lead it in different directions. This guy may be building a Ford over here. This guy may be building a Chevrolet. But the parts aren't interchangeable. They both drive and they'll both get you there. And so that's real important. And today I get the dubious honor of being the leader. We've appointed a safety person, which I believe is important as long as you have enough people to have one person that's specifically in charge of safety. Safety is such an important thing. One of the fundamental priorities is that the rescuer must not become a victim. Once the rescuer becomes a victim, he is part of the problem now rather than part of the solution. So we have a safety person.
First thing when you're doing rescue, whether it's on the mountainside or on the street or wherever, is you got to have the rescuers have to be safe. And I say that for selfish reason, that I don't want to get my own people creamed. But also, you just create another victim unless you're careful yourself. So you don't help anybody else out at all if you get hurt yourself. So taking care of yourself is number one.
And a safety contact, before you go into any rescue situation, some kind of safety briefing is going to be very important. We've already gone over a safety briefing with our team here today. We've talked about the slippery ramps, the fall hazards. We will wear helmets anytime we're off the ground, or if there's anybody working above us, so they might drop something on us. We also teach the KISS formula, keep it simple for safety, rather than the traditional keep it simple, stupid. Well, I don't think anybody's stupid. We just have different ideas in that, so we have changed it to keep it simple for safety. A couple of things we're going to look for is what we call the scissor test. If your system passes the scissor test, you're in really good shape safety-wise. What that means is if I come up with my magic scissors and I cut any one component in your system, and if that fails and you end up hitting the ground, then there's a problem. But if we can cut one component and you're backed up somewhere else, you're going to be a lot better off. And the possibilities of making 2 bad mistakes in a row is pretty low. That's one of the things we do. Also, we strive for what we call the whistle test. If we blow the whistle and everybody raises their hands into the air, will the system continue to hold that person? Would it ever happen where you need to do that? Industrial rescue, you have an explosion. What do people do? They get knocked on their tail ends. Up in the high mountains, you get lightning bolts. You get the ground currents. It'll go for 50 feet, 100 yards around, lightning or more. And if you get zapped by one of those, you let go of things. And so if you can build your system to meet the whistle test, you're going to be one better. We use the buddy system actively. This is very important. What we mean by that is that everybody watches each other. You watch me, I watch you, and we look for little things. So start looking at people's harnesses, look at the rigging. It's surprising how many little things that you can find that might be actually dangerous, or maybe you can just make it a little safer. Also, anything that falls today is rock. It's a warning. It is not an identification. Sometimes on guided ice climbs, I've heard other instructors or guides yell, "Ice!" And then I actually heard one student yell, "Ice hammer!" You know, and they get it mixed up. It's not an identification, it's a warning. Be sure you yell it at the top of your lungs, and if you happen to see something, or you hear the word rock, be sure to look up and see where it's coming from, right? No. Take cover. If you're close to the building, continue on in. You have your helmets on, you'll be covered there. If you're away from the building, move away from it, but don't look up for it unless you want to lose your front teeth or something like that. If there's any kind of safety problem, any kind of question even if you're not sure but you think it might be unsafe, let's use the word stop. The word stop is the word we use to halt action so that we can address a question. Maybe I'm about ready to step on a rattlesnake. Yell stop rather than Doug, 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 Doug. If you do that, I may not stop or I may go another step. And that may be too late. For example, I know of one case, a girl was rappelling into a cave. She had actually hooked her carabiner to her belt loop, and her figure 8 was hooked to that. Not thinking, she takes her figure 8 off, puts it in the rope, clips it back to her carabiner into her belt loop. If she's starting to go over the edge and someone doesn't yell stop and she decides, well, I'm going to offer place, let me go over the edge and then I'll see what he wants, then it's too late. But the belt loop did break. She fell about 70 feet and busted it up pretty bad. I understand it ruined her whole day, actually. One thing I'd like to talk about is what we call the 5 times safety factor. A dynamic safety factor versus a static safety factor. Now I'm going to erase this stuff, and they're all important, but again, I like to leave principles up there. One of my favorites is sometimes people use black and white words like never use a knife around ropes. Well, that's a good general rule, but occasionally having to cut something is important. The idea is, the principle is, well, nylon under tension cuts very easily. And so if you are forced to use a cutting implement like that, then be very careful, preferably EMT shears or something like that. But sometimes it does make sense and you do have to cut things. So let's leave the principles up there. And that's the one thing we want to stay focused on, is the principles of why we do things. Another example would be never use heavy equipment in a rescue, like a big crane. Well, that's a big never if someone's life's on the line. The principle is heavy equipment can overpower your system so quickly it'll fail. And so, yes, avoid using it if you can. But for example, here in Academy Square in Provo, they had a rescue where the walls of this building were so unstable, they had nothing to anchor to. They had no choice but to use heavy equipment. And if they had gone in from the never, never idea, then someone's life may have been lost because of it. So stay focused on the principles. Now, NFPA, other organizations often talk about what we call a 15-to-1 safety factor. I often talk a 5-to-1 safety factor. Whose is better? Well, the way I look at it is the difference between a static safety factor and a dynamic safety factor. If you don't want to have to figure dynamics and stuff and use a straight static means stop or non-moving. A static factor, 15-to-1, makes up for little things like knots, weaken ropes, anywhere from 20 to 50% approximately. Or once someone starts falling, instead of 200 pounds of mass, you actually can develop that force up to thousands of pounds. So what I try to do in my systems, and I think it's a better way, is a dynamic safety factor. And some people say, well, there's too much thinking involved. Well, when it comes to rescue, it is a thinking person game. You can't black and white think it. You know, it's good to understand both these ideas, but it's a changing game. If you go into this and approach it like any other rescue, you're going to have some problems there. So it's real important to think about what you're doing. Care of equipment, keeping it organized, dates of the ropes were bought, finding out how they've been used. These kinds of things will increase your safety as well. Also, using your hard hat, we've mentioned that, using gloves. Let's make a talk about gloves. If a pair of gloves fits you properly, you're going to do a lot better. A pair that you can actually feel the ends of your fingers and stuff. It's very important to wear gloves to prevent injury. Sometimes it's too cold to work without gloves. Sometimes the environment you're in, it can cut you, things like this. So it's very important to learn to do things with gloves on. Anytime there's rope moving or sliding, you should have a pair of gloves on. So this is another part of safety equipment. Another question, who is responsible for your safety? Obviously, you guys are. Everybody's responsible for their own safety, but it's surprising how many people don't think that way. And so let's take an active role there. One thing we're going to try to do on all our systems, we're going to try to break it down to the simplest component. Rather than trying to have all the fancy stuff, we may show you some of the fancy stuff, but what if you don't have that? Or what if it gets broken or falls or something? Someone that learns the principle again, and we'll keep coming to that, can always implement